Tactical Rifleman Nation. Before we get into the video, I just want to take a minute to thank companies that help support our channel. Without them, we couldn't bring you the great videos that we do every week. This week, I want to thank Nutrient Survival.
All right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Tactical Rifleman. This week, I have one of my favorite humans on the planet, Randy. He's also very much into knives. We were sent a bunch of knives to test out, and these are the EDC folder category of knives that we were sent. Obviously, there's tons of other knives out there, right? Lots of good makers, lots of bad makers. We want to tell you first off that we specifically are not using, we're not showing anything today that's like our designs or things that we carry, right? These are all brand new to us. And so we're kind of testing them out and figuring what we like, don't like, whatever about what these companies sent. Randy got a few, I got a few, and we got to play with them, and then we got together and got to play with them a little bit today, and you're going to see some of that footage while we yap at you. So, all right, Randy, what's your first criteria for deciding on a EDC folder that you're going to carry?
Me, I use it for self-defense and for a weapon that I can hide on my body easy. So it's got to be small, lightweight, that I can get to in different places you wouldn't think to find it. It isn't just that I can stab you or cut you with it. I might need to cut myself loose from being tied up.
Right, right.
All
okay.
Right. So my first one I'm going to go over this Kershaw, and what this is a switchblade. All right. It's very lightweight, very well made. It's got a clip that you can go onto it. And once you press the button and it opens, it's got detents here for my fingers, so actually it locks in, and this is called jimping for my finger right there. So if I use it like I want to, my hand's not going to slip and come up over the blade, okay? And it's also small enough that I can get it and cut myself loose if I needed to. You wouldn't see where I had it, and that's one of the things I'm looking for.
So let me touch on a point that you made here. So Randy's talking about the jimping back here, right? And that's these little file marks. When I make knives by hand, literally, they call this file work because you sit there with a file and do them individually. This jimping, okay, is a place for your thumb if you're, both Randy and I prefer the Filipino grip for fighting, unless you're going reverse grip, of course.
Yeah.
But most people, so you enjoy this up here. This is comfortable for you?
Guides my knife for me. I know where my blade is.
Yeah, and this is why knives are such an individual thing, right? So for me, for example, you see how it kind of comes to this point here. The way my hand naturally sits on a blade, my thumb goes way up forward. So I want you guys to understand placement of jimping, the way it feels in your hand. It's very individual, right? Knife's not a piece of crap because it's not comfortable for you. So this knife, I'm kind of surprised, honestly, this is your favorite because, we talk a lot about knives, you and I, and this is a Wharncliffe, which is something that I love Wharncliffe designs. And for those of you who don't know what a Wharncliffe is, that means the cutting edge is straight, okay? There's no belly to it, there's no recurve to it. And then from the spine of the blade up here, it actually goes down towards the tip. And what that gives you is an insanely sharp tip. It's a very, very stabby tip. On the flip side of that, the downside to a Wharncliffe, and this is, I believe, this is CPM 154, which is an excellent, excellent steel. Which means that this tip is not going to be super breaky, most likely because the steel is good and hopefully the heat treat's very good. And we did kind of stab it into some stuff to test it, and we have no warpage. But, it is a more fragile tip. So, yeah, it's incredibly light, slim, very cool knife. All right. Well,
what's one that you liked?
Since you started with your favorite, I'll go for my favorite. And from all of these, by far my favorite was this, let's see, it's an off-grid knives. It's the Cayman EDC. And Actually, a lot of the points that I love about this knife are very similar to what you like about them. So, or about your favorite one. This one, first and foremost, it fits my hand very well. I think the design of the guard here, and the guard, just so you see, the guard doubles up as your opening lever. And let me start with the one thing I don't like about this knife. I like doing kinetic openings. I cannot do a kinetic opening with this knife. It doesn't work because the detent is too tight. Which my guess is it's by design. Cool, not everybody likes to open knives that way, no big deal. It opens beautifully. It's almost a Wharncliffe. And for a fighting knife, for a small fighting knife, I really prefer Wharncliffes. It's either a Wharncliffe or if I'm in a more stabby mood, then I like Tontos. But I feel like bang for your buck in terms of self-defense, slashing is the way, as opposed to stabbing, because it enables you to take those mobility kills, right, to stop the fight now. The point in a knife fight is not to kill someone.
Right.
In our context, the point is to end the fight as quickly as possible. And that's what I like about Wharncliffes. This one has a little bit of a belly up, but it's very minor. And you see that the spine goes down to the tip, but it kind of curves up a little bit. And what that's doing, other than being pretty, is actually reinforcing the tip a little bit. Like this knife, it's a liner lock. Liner locks, meaning, the liner inside of here, you push it, right, and the blade folds. Liner locks are not the strongest locks, but they certainly are the most comfortable in terms of closing, a knife one-handed. So I really like that. And the way the clip is designed is really the knife sits in your pocket all the way down. So you see the clip, of course, on the outside of the pocket, but you're not going to see any of the knife itself. And I really like that. So also in reverse grip, this thing just locks into my hand real tight. So
one of the things that's different with me is I don't really like folders for fighting. I like fixed blades. I don't want anything breaking, folding, cutting my fingers. So I do love this knife. Everything you just said about it, but it's a little bit, the only thing I would say is a little bit bigger with this one. I can hide better. That's the only difference. Yep. I agree with everything that you said, but I really don't fight with folders. I fight with fixed blades.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, right? And that's why we put a lot of thought into what kind of folder you carry and what the purpose is for that knife. And a lot of places you're just not going to be able to carry a fixed blade.
Yeah.
My recommendation for the most part is the EDC folder you carry. If your intention is to use it as a defensive blade for fighting, don't cut your apples with it. Don't open your Amazon boxes with it. Keep it nice and sharp, okay? Because, and you'll see in the footage that we're showing now, right? We cut a lot of meat. They all cut meat, but they're also all brand new out of the box. But consider people with a jeans jacket on, right? Leather jacket, winter coat where you have to get in further and you have to cut through sometimes really, really sturdy material. The Carhartt, that canvas is hard to cut through. And it's thick. So that's a downside in general to smaller knives, right? The upside, of course, is it fits in your pocket, no big deal. All right, you and I have both, our second favorite knife is the same one. Let's chat about that.
Yes. One of the things that I like about this buck knife is an AD10.
It's cold steel.
Cold steel. Excuse me. Cold steel. And I love cold steel. I like, for this, the thickness and heaviness of this knife and the way it fits in my hand. It's not going to break on me. If I wanted to use it more than just fighting and I had to pry something, I have confidence in this knife that it would do it.
Yep.
But jimping is different on it. Doesn't hold my thing, but it's all right. It's still comfortable, but it's not going to slip in my hand. And it's got, the only downside I can say is it's got the lock on the back. So when you do it, you got to press it and then watch your fingers closing it. But these open really fast and really well.
I cut myself with this knife twice today.
And you can do it left-handed. Left-handed, you can flip it out and open it up. So it's either hand. I love the design of it. I like the heaviness of it. I think it will hold up really well. When we cut the rope, it was phenomenal with it. It's just an all-around good knife.
Yep. Yeah. So let me touch on the lock back, right? So this locking mechanism, everybody knows from the old school knives, right? The old school knives all used to be like this before we had, you know, axis locks, which this is actually Benchmade makes these. We'll talk about this in a second. It's kind of my favorite locking mechanism. I love the axis lock. I carried axis lock Benchmades all through the Army. But let's get back to this cold steel a second. I like that it's thick. I mean, this is beefy. I would say this is a quarter inch piece of steel. And what does it say what kind of steel that is? Oh, it's S35 VN. Yeah. So that's fancy schmancy, good, you know, super high carbon stainless steel. The lockback is one of the strongest, if not the strongest locking mechanisms, right? When you get this big, hefty piece of steel that's just locking it back there, and there's nothing that you're gonna do that I've discovered so far that's gonna overcome that lock versus, you know, a liner lock, or in this case, a frame lock on this scallywag. You know, if you're, you know, there's a possibility that you can see what I just did? Right, I mean, there's a possibility that by mistake you can fold it on your hand, and that's just something that you have to know about your tool, right? So the lockback is nice. The downfall of the lockback is it's really not comfortable. Oh, there we go again. Yeah, that'll bleed in a second, right? So you don't want to close it with one hand. So before we go to some other stuff, let's let YouTube give us a bit of a commercial break. And we'll be right back with more knives.
All right, on these knives, we actually put them through different tests because these are folders. There's certain things we did with them. Obviously, we cut some meat. We had let Imri do that. So there's different ways he attacked the meat with it, and they all did fairly good. And then we cut ropes on the back side, which is easier, and then the tips on these, and some of them did better than the others, but they all did remarkably pretty well. This was unbelievably outstanding, this AD cold steel.
Which is almost surprising, right? That one I think is the sharpest of the lot here, and it's also the thickest piece of steel.
Why don't you go over the one that you like on that locking mechanism here,
okay.
And then we'll cover a couple of these. I want to talk about the 18th century.
Okay. So let's talk about, so this is the Benchmade Bug Out. Benchmade, I like their knives. I know some of you are gonna get pissy about the crap that they had a few years ago with taking down guns, blah, 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 politics, I don't care. They make good knives. But I believe Benchmade is the one that actually started the axis lock. Oh. I love it. I think it's really a comfortable locking mechanism. If you pull on the lock, right, then the knife will open pretty easily. Not that I think that's necessarily, you know, there we go, it's still pretty new. I don't think that's necessarily a good way to open it, but I see a lot of people doing that. With as light of a knife as this is, like I said, I like this little kinetic opening deal. Yeah. And I'm very surprised. Usually it takes a bit of a heavier blade to really do that comfortably. The axis lock is strong. It's really strong. I've never had one fail. I've had a lot of knives fail because those of you who know me know that I abuse gear. Hence the back of my shirt. So, yeah, you know, injection molded handle, not sexy, super light, super strong, chemical resistant, great stuff. Let's see, this one is S30V, so excellent stainless steel. I'm not in love with this knife, but I'll tell you what, man, bang for your buck, this is a wonderful knife to have in your pocket.
This is a knife that I would use for everyday different chores because it's so light, so well built. That's what I did. No, I would not fight or anything with it, but doggone it, that thing, you wouldn't even know it was in your pocket, and there's a ton of things that you can do with that.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons you're saying you wouldn't fight with it, well, there's a few, right? First of all, there's no jimping. So if you're one of the beer can or hammer fist grip kind of people, then great, take some knife fighting lessons. But the jimping, this drives me nuts. Okay, this drives me nuts. I'm sorry. And you see it on so many knives, right? There is jimping here, but it's back here, right? And if you try to hold a knife like this to fight with your thumb here, as opposed to on the actual spine of the blade, it really defeats the purpose of the Filipino grip, right? Because the purpose of the Filipino grip is to be able to have your, essentially you're creating that bone structure going down through your thumb into the tip of the blade. You're increasing accuracy of your cuts, and you're increasing the pressure of your cuts. The other thing is you like bigger knives for fighting.
Yes.
I enjoy, the whole pocket knife fighting thing. I do a lot of martial blade concepts and that kind of thing, and it revolves around EDC knives.
It just won't hold your hand well here. Your hand's going to slip forward and get it cut. So it's more of a utility knife is what I just use that for. Fair
assessment. Okay, let's do this, because I don't want to drag this on too long. There's really 3 more things that I'd like to talk about. I'd like you to give your opinion on these open L knives, which are, the really famous, really popular.
All right, this knife here is, I believe, from the 1800s design. And the locking mechanism here, there's unlock, you just twist that, and then now the blade can't close. This isn't a knife that you're going to open easily or quickly or doing it. It's not going to come out. I got to stick my thumb in there, pull it out like that. It's stiff. I lock it. Now it can't close. This is a camp knife in your camp gear. You're going to cut your vegetables up. You're going to slice meat with it. It's perfect. I can fillet fish with it. It is not. I wouldn't use it for anything else. It's not strong enough to do that. It's really not designed for much else. But it is a design that's still here today. It's over 100 years old. That's pretty remarkable, and it's still going.
Yeah, and I think, so this is a French company.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're famous, they're cool, I totally agree. I would never carry one of these other than as a spare in my pack, because really, it weighs nothing. Yeah. It weighs literally nothing. It's so thin, they're cute, All right, let's talk about the knives we don't like. There's one each that we're gonna talk about here a second. I'm not bashing these companies, right? They're both well-known companies, but these knives are, well, we didn't care for them much. And here's why, right? This one's made by Buck. Buck's been around forever. They've made a lot of good knives over the years.
Yes, they have.
Right? Back in the day, you'd order them out of the back of the magazine, and these were, Buck made a big name for themselves. As far as the blade, we have a hollow grind here, which, okay, cool, whatever. Reflects light kind of nicer. It would make the blade a little bit sharper. I really only use a hollow grind if I'm making a knife where my cross section of the knife is very, very thick, and I'm not going to cut something very deep, right? Because, and it also depends on the diameter of the wheel that you're grinding on. The larger the diameter, the closer it is to a flat grind, which I think the majority of these knives are flat ground. But that's not what I don't like about it, because hollow grinds are fine, right, if done right. Here's what I don't like about it. Randy, you pointed this out, and I was like, wow, what is this? This is weird. So if you look at it, you don't see a locking mechanism. And this little bolster here, the bolster lifts up, right? And then the knife is free. Now, it is spring assisted, and then the bolster goes down and locks it in place. So now that it's locked in place, I cannot open this knife. All right, cool. But how about deployment, right? To deploy it, you have to raise the bolster, right? And then you have a little button here, and you pull it out, and then you got to lock it. Essentially what this means is if you're using this in our context of, self-defense and that kind of thing, you have 3 actions to do other than taking it out of the pocket, which takes time. You have 3 actions to do, and through a fight, I mean, is it possible that this bolster gets pushed up? Yeah, I'm not touching this knife. not for my purposes.
But also the bolster, you may not get it closed when you go to use it, and you've already cut yourself twice full of, and that'll come back and cut your fingers in a heartbeat. No,
And that is a sharp knife.
yeah, okay.
So cool. What's your least favorite, Randy?
The Smith & Wesson M&P. Let me put it here. It has a variety of different things that you have to do.
Randy, how could this be bad? There's so many buttons.
Yeah. Simplest is the easiest. When you're under stress, it just needs to be natural. It just needs to work, and you don't need to think about it. So now you have a locking mechanism here. In itself, that means this can't close. You can't do anything to make it close. That's fine, but that means you got to take that off. If that could be clicked back on. Now, if I want to close it, there's a button here. I've got to press it down. All right, then it releases this. Then I've got to cock this all the way back because it's spring loaded. Now, if I don't want it to go off my pocket, I got to turn that lock on. And I got to remember to turn that off if I want to use it. It's not going to happen, okay? The other bad thing is if I hold my hand like this, and push it, what my fingers catches this rod that goes up here. So that means now when you open it, you have to take it like this so your fingers don't touch here, and then it'll slice open. And I don't even know if that's locked. Oh, it is.
So essentially you have to break your grip in order to open it, right?
And you can't put the safety on so it can't automatically open because you'll never get that off. It is way too over-engineered for safety, and this cocking mechanism is just going to get in your way. The one thing that we did do with it, it didn't cut the rope really well, but man, when he did the meat with it, that was impressive.
I was surprised it cut the meat better than I expected based on the fact that it didn't even get through our jute rope.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't even cut it.
Well, okay, that pretty much covers it, right?
Yeah.
We have our favorites. You know, there's one more that doesn't really fit into any other category here, but I kind of want to point it out because it's pretty. And
It's a gentleman's knife.
it's a gentleman's flipper, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that if you're a gentleman, which we are not. This is made by Benchmade. It's super light, and they really did a good job aesthetically. I like it. Look, I wouldn't carry it. There's not even a pocket clip. There's no way to carry it other than just in your pocket, like loose.
Gentlemen wear a vest. It goes in your vest. You pull it out and you clean
I
your
wear a
pipe.
vest. It's got magazines in it.
No, and you cut the end of your cigar, things like that.
Well, you learn something new every day. So it's a gentleman's flipper. It's kind of a weird modified Tonto. Cute, useless for our purpose, but okay. Well, I think that pretty much sums it up for our EDC options here that we were sent. We got some cool knives. We got a couple knives that surprised us in a kind of negative way, but it's a learning experience too. So, you know, hopefully you guys enjoyed, you know, some of the cutting and stabbing and whatnot that we did with these. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully it helps you guys make some decisions, and we will see you next week.
If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so you don't miss out on anything.